Welcome back to the show, Alex. I'm just kidding. Lynsey's back.
Hi.
You were just here. Episode 81 was you.
Yeah.
Episode 82 was Meg. And now you're back. I like this new thing that we're doing.
Yeah.
Pretty great. I think the episode today will be a really cool one. We're going to talk about, it was originally like the 5 pillars of being a kick-ass client. And then we added a couple. So the 7 pillars of being a kick-ass client. And this is not just if you work with us. Like I know a lot of our clients and people who we work with listen to the show, but it's also these are things that would improve and probably are indicative of a good coach-client relationship, no matter what kind of coach you work with, whether it's a nutrition coach, life coach, business coach, fitness coach. I think the concepts are quite universal. So they're in no particular order. Some will overlap, but this is our opinion based on the work that we've done over the years. So I'll let someone else take it.
All right. So just an overview, and then we'll dive right in. We have for the 7 pillars: openness, communication and responsiveness, trust, low ego, patience, willingness to learn, and self-motivated / takes personal responsibility. So let's start with number 1, openness.
It's the best one. And I think we're going to go full like Brene Brown here, because in my opinion, openness and vulnerability kind of go hand in hand. And so I think for a lot of people who are just starting on their coaching journey, I hate that word, but we'll use it. There's a lot of shame in just like getting started and reaching out and admitting like, I need help with this, whether it's, whatever it is, nutrition, health. There's a lot of shame in just saying I need help and reaching out. And so someone, who has taken the first step of contacting us or signing up with a coach, like obviously has embraced that to an extent, but you can still see it show up in the way that people communicate.
Yeah, I think like within the actual like meat or like middle of coaching, it's that willingness to be like, hey, I'm frustrated with this, or hey, I'm struggling with this, versus just not telling people like that, because I think sometimes we can assume that they know that they need to be patient and that like things aren't going to happen right away. And so then like they don't necessarily communicate that like frustration or like uneasiness that things aren't necessarily like happening right away. And I think there's like a way to communicate that to us where we can then support that feeling and like help them through that, versus just like feeling that way and then kind of like exploding later and being like, I've been so frustrated and nothing is working, or they just like cancel or whatever. So I think just like even being able to say, I'm struggling with this, or I feel this way, can be really helpful for us as a coach, because it allows us to like talk through that feeling with them.
Like we've done posts on, it's not just about trying harder.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people still fall into that trap. Like, I didn't track this week. I'll just ignore my coach. And then next week I'll track and we can have a conversation. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, we're over here like, what are you struggling with specifically? And they don't respond. And it's like, how can we help? Because even though, yeah, it's tracking, or it's even just eating 3 well-rounded meals a day, like if we don't know what the struggle is, like, is meal prep the struggle? Is the fact that you don't have time to eat lunch the struggle? Like, how do we even help you implement strategies if we don't know what the specific struggles are? Because those can differ so drastically person to person. Mm-hmm. I had a client yesterday tell me that he hadn't been as responsive as, he wasn't responding to me because he felt embarrassed that he wasn't able to just do what I told him to do, which we don't really tell people what to do, but we do say like, hey, shoot for these macros, track your food. I mean, it's very, especially starting out, we have kind of a plan of attack, but within that, there's a lot of intricacy. But he's like, I just don't know why I can't do this. And I said to him, I wouldn't have a job if this were as easy as you think it should be. Everyone struggles in some way. And then I had another client who had an emotional eating event episode, whatever you want to call it. And she said, I wasn't going to tell you, but I'm glad I did. And I'm like, did it change for you once you told me? She was like, yeah, I just don't feel as guilty as I did before. And that I didn't even say anything about it. She just, the act of telling someone made her feel less shame, which I think could help stop the cycle of kind of the shame
for sure
pattern, which is usually what can lead to emotional eating for some people.
Yeah, I think that like emotional eating part is like huge in the openness area, because I think people do feel a lot of shame, and I always really appreciate when they are able to be like honest and be like, I couldn't even track it because I don't know how much I ate. And then like, it's like, okay, like just saying that it's fine. Like, let's like work on some strategies for when it happens again, or like reflect on like how you were feeling leading up to the event. Then you can like really help them versus not even knowing that it happened, and ending up like lowering their macros or whatever, in response to like a lack of progress or whatever it might be. So yeah, I think that one in particular, I like understand how tough it is. And I really appreciate when people can be honest and open about it.
I find even when people are open and honest about things that aren't related to nutrition, that end up being kind of related, like, hey, I'm going through a really bad breakup.
Yep.
Or I got broken up with, which can be embarrassing. I mean, I've been through that. Or whatever I'm struggling with being a parent right now. Like, not that I can necessarily relate, but sometimes just saying that and feeling like there's a safe space to share can be huge for that person. And then on our end, it allows us to kind of back off a little bit or readjust. Not that we have expectations, but our approach with that person. Like, okay, this person is struggling. I'm probably not going to ask them next week, like, hey, how come you're not hitting your macros? Because I know, like, it's because they're probably, not eating, or they just don't have the energy for it. So let's focus on things that might seem more manageable to them. I think the openness of vulnerability, as hard as it can be, is like huge in building that coaching relationship.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a society where I think like heroic individualism is very rewarded, which is just like, I have to do hard things and I have to do them alone. And there's an expectation that like you can do it all by yourself. And so there's a lack of sharing, just like generally, I think in our society, in our modern world. And, the more you share with others, like when you're having a difficult time or whatever it is, like the lighter the load gets. Not to be super cliche, but it does. It just like takes a load off your shoulders. So, yeah, that's a big one. Vulnerability. Yep. And then like when you mess up, like there's going to be some guilt. But so what? I don't know. I think we do a pretty good job making people aware that like there's no expectation that anyone does anything perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before maybe, but I would 100% rather it be like some things be like kind of off in their logs, or like they're struggling with something, and them be open and talk to me about that, than everything appearing fine when it's not actually fine. Because then like, what can we do?
Yeah. I think the last thing I'll add to this is we've had I think we've all had clients that have stuck around for over at least 2 years. And some of those people I've never even talked to. Like I've just texted them. So, I've had calls with certain people or met certain people along the way, but for some people, like, I'm not in their life. Like nobody knows who I am. Like they might say like, oh, my coach Alex, and people might know who I am, but that can sometimes create a little bit of a safer barrier to share things. It's like, you're not in my life. You're kind of this like outside party that I don't have to worry about what you think, because I'm not going to see you tomorrow. Or like, you're not going to say anything to my friends because you don't even know who my friends are. And it's just like, it's not necessarily a therapist situation, but it's similar. It's like, I'm not in your life. I'm an outsider and I'm only on your side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be biased by your friend telling me their side of the story.
Totally.
I think that can be helpful for some people too. It's like safer. Okay, so the next one is communication and responsiveness. And the way that we coach is mostly text message based, sometimes email, and we'll speak about that. And then we'll have the odd phone call with clients if they feel that that's valuable. But I think we kind of avoid email and prioritize texting for a specific reason. And that's to increase the number of contact points, and it allows for more free-flowing communication. So we find that if someone's not a great texter or doesn't, take the time to sit down, even if it's text message, like take the 15 minutes to have a conversation. Like your coach is going to be fairly responsive during business hours, having a conversation where you can kind of go back and forth, because on our end, we're all about asking questions. So if it's like hours in between one question, it's like, this is rough.
Then you get less from us, like just simply because there's less time to go over things, and then you get a response like way later in the day. It just kind of breaks it up. So I just think that as much as you can, like we understand when people are really busy or their jobs are like they can't look at their phone until a certain time or whatever. Like I think we're very accommodating to that. So yeah, I think just like responding as soon as you can, when you can, it just helps the relationship a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like good clients don't ghost either. Is this the right time to say that? Yeah, I mean, again, like ghosting is, I feel like, the 2022 standard for how you end relationships or how you treat people, and it's really, really annoying. So it's like, even if you want to be done with coaching, or don't want to see my face ever again pop up on your screen, just say, hey, like, it's been great getting to know you. Maybe not. I don't know. Make something up. Just don't ghost. I don't know why that's like such a thing. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that sets us apart from other companies is that it is very much a relationship based and a communication heavy coaching method. And it is kind of designed to stand in for like an in-person type situation where you get to have a conversation. And it's difficult when that doesn't happen, because it feels like you can never quite like even start to have a relationship or get a foot in the door. And oftentimes that correlates to a pretty short retention period with that client, which just means they're not going to get as much out of the coaching relationship as they could. And sometimes it's it's job related. It's caused by things that are outside of their control, and that's okay. And other times you kind of just get the impression that it just is not the priority for someone. Like it's kind of the last thing that they want to deal with. And so they let it be the last thing that they deal with for the day. And, we try to be pretty flexible with people and be as responsive as we can. But if it's 8 p.m. and we're just hearing back from a client, like I'm just not in a place anymore as a coach where I'm just going to like strike up a conversation with someone at 8 p.m. my time. Like it's just not, it's not fair. It's not going to be a good conversation. I'm not going to be all in it. And, it's just not good.
Sometimes I feel like clients message me back at the end of the night because they know I'm not going to respond till the next day. And it's like, oh, I don't have to face this question today. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But maybe that's me just like having a bleak outlook sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I have people, I work with a couple of like surgeons, doctors, and legit, they're in surgery for like 8 hours. And so I can't expect to hear back from them, but I have people who are quite good at saying, if they do have to send a message late, they say, hey, I know it's late. This is what happened today. I was in surgery. don't respond to this until the next check-in day, but here's my update. And they just like boom, 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 boom. They go through it. They know the information that they need to deliver so that we can have a productive conversation the next time I'm able to get them on the line versus like 8 p.m. Like, week is going good. Here's a random question, and that's all you get.
Or not even a question. It's just like, hey, good. And it's 8 p.m. and you're like, okay, good.
Thank you. Yeah. So helpful.
Yeah. Or it's like, haven't been feeling well. And then you're like, oh no, like, what kind of symptoms do you have? Like, how's your appetite? How's your sleep? Like, maybe we can kind of figure out what we can be doing while you're not feeling well. And then it's like nothing.
Yeah.
6 hours later.
Cool.
Yeah, my throat's a little sore. Do you have any recommendations for that?
The big takeaway here is like for clients, it's like coaches are people too. Coaches are people too. It's our job, but we also have feelings. We're invested in clients. We want the best for each and every client. So like getting ghosted or getting treated like, I'm just going to say it, crap, just doesn't feel good. Be open. If you don't want to be in this relationship, say so. If something's going on, say so. It just, otherwise we are left wondering what's going on or if we have done something because we're trying to be our best coaches. So it's like, we look, at least for me, I look at myself. I'm like, did I say something? Could I have done something different? But I never know because sometimes clients just leave forever. They fall off the side of the earth.
Well, yeah. And I think
for those flat earthers.
Yeah, for those flat earthers.
I mean, don't insult flat earthers. They have plenty of research and evidence.
Right.
I think for some people there's this expectation that we can look at food logs and just like magically have answers where it's like, yeah, we're going to look at what you're eating. But a lot of our ability to coach requires like, we have to know what's going on. Like we have to know, okay, I see, what food looks like. I need to know now, like how are your energy levels? How's your mood? How are you feeling in training? How's your sleep? Like all of the things that are really important. And that relies on a conversation. It's not just like, oh, I see that you replaced your spinach with kale. That's really great, because kale has more magnesium in it, and that's probably helping with your sleep. So I'm just going to assume that because you're eating kale, you're now sleeping better. Okay, bye.
Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the huge key is that we can only get so much information from the log. So we need a conversation. So we need that like back and forth in order to really help someone.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes like I give thought to, okay, like how can we help people who just don't have time to have conversations or don't want to? And so I kick around like, well, maybe we need to have a system where, the client is putting in more data. They're putting in more of their own metrics. They're rating their sleep. But that's like, I think as soon as you do that, it just becomes more difficult for people who already might have difficulty just like logging their food or eating. Like you want someone to now eat well, log their food, record their hours of sleep per night, define the quality of that, like basically outline all of the stuff that we want to know about in an app or some sort of a electronic system. I just don't think it would work.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't work.
Yeah. And I think it's still, even if they could do that, would require communication.
Yeah.
Well, you rated sleep as 4.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
And then it's just like crickets.
Yeah.
It's like, hello? Yeah. I mean, it's like, that's the problem is it's still coaching requires, good coaching anyways, requires the relationship. It requires a communication. Like it has to be, you have to be able to take data and make it actionable for someone versus just taking data and collecting it. And that's it. I mean, there's tons of apps that already do that. There's a whole industry that's built on that. Consumer surveillance monitoring, Whoop. What do people do with Whoop data? Nothing. They just collect it.
There was an app that we tried out, and it basically each day you ranked a bunch of different biomarkers, I guess. A lot of it was qualitative. And I'm pretty good with tracking my food, tracking my weight, getting in my workouts, recording my results. getting those to my coach, doing this thing every day to like actually think about all these different biomarkers, qualitative. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't. I mean, it was a lot.
Yeah.
It seemed like. So to ask a client who's, like you said, already not very responsive due to time constraints or just not prioritizing this, asking them to do one more thing doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So next. Trust.
Mm-hmm.
Trust the person you're hiring. That I'm going to qualify that. There's a difference between being inquisitive and asking the question why,
and being a pain in the ass.
Yeah. And being just super critical of everything. And or like saying like, I'm going to do this though. And then not really even having a conversation about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I've had these people before. I don't really have them now, but it's almost like they hired me just so that they had someone to argue with about nutrition. Yeah. I'm like, what are we doing here? And it's a lot of times it's men, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's I'm like, don't you have anything better to do with your money? But it seems to be a lot of, and I don't know, like biohacking is really popular, and it's really, really popular with men.
It actually is more popular with men.
Yeah, that's why I said that.
It is. I've noticed that.
Yeah. And it's great. Like there's interesting data in that area. Telomeres are really cool. But, a lot of people who seem to be very obsessed with biohacking also have diets that are just hot garbage and they don't sleep. So it's like, I'm never going to be a person who's like particularly interested in talking about biohacking. I don't care. Like, maybe if you're doing everything perfect and you're sleeping 8 or 9 hours, your diet's immaculate, sure. But then at that point, I'm also not the right person to hire because that's not my area of expertise and I'm not interested in it. Mm. But people, I get a lot of, why aren't we doing this? Why am I not taking this supplement? Like, why am I not looking at fasting windows? Why am I not like, and I'm like, bro, why are you sleeping 5 hours a night?
Yeah, like
why aren't you sleeping 8 hours a night? Yeah. So it's just kind of like, it's not even argumentative that the things that we recommend don't work, because I don't think anyone could look at the very basics of nutrition and lifestyle and say, that's not worth attention. It's like what I find myself in arguments about most often is how much attention should be given to things other than the basic components of wellness by specific people based on where they are in their life. That's what I find myself in arguments with people over most often.
You did a post probably like a year ago now on trust, the coach client, like trust aspect of a relationship. What was that? Can you remind me of what you wrote if you remember?
I wish I could remember, to be honest, but
okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it was like somewhere along the same lines. It was like you hired this person, or at least this like method, because when they like sign up with Tactic, they don't necessarily know who they're getting as a coach, but they know that coach is going to like be in the same, like support the same concepts that are communicated on the Instagram page. So if you signed up, I assume that you've like been following the page usually for a while, so you understand that like we really drive home, like I guess covering the basics first. So it's like similar to Meredith. Usually, what Meredith said, usually people say like they get into the really nuancy, like nitty gritty stuff before they have the main things sorted out. And so, I'm sure I said something about like you're paying a specific person to guide you down this path that you want. So why not just like go all in, give that person their trust, and then you can at least say that you have fully tried that method and like gave it your best shot. And then like I'm sure there'd be like an argument to be made about whether you actually did or not, but then you can like actually say that this didn't work for me.
Yeah. I think, like, thinking back, I think we're all clients to a coach. Mm-hmm. currently, and I've been a client to many coaches in the past through athletics as like an athletic skills-based coach, performance coach, or I've had nutrition coaches. And each and every time I make sure that I hire who I think is going to be the best, and I have trust. And like, if I'm curious about an approach, I feel comfortable asking about that, and I'm comfortable with the response given. If I lose trust in that person, the amount of mental energy required to actually do what's asked of me, knowing that I'm not fully trusting this person, would take away so much from the actual doing, that I would definitely get rid of that coach, which has never happened. I've never like got into a situation where I don't trust the coach or their approach, thankfully. But if I did, it would be over. Yeah. Like, I think as soon as you lose trust and confidence in the coach's capabilities or the relationship, then you have to move on. And also just make sure you know who you're hiring. Like, if you want to inquire first or have a call, like, that's important, because you're investing in yourself. Like, and you want to make sure that when you dive in, you're like diving all the way in, and you don't have, I don't know, one foot on one side of the fence and one foot on the other, which has nothing to do with diving. But anyways,
two different metaphors. It's fine. Oh, and that's different than, I think, like you mentioned, asking why or being inquisitive. Because I don't, like, none of us mind that at all. I love explaining things, like, why did I make that decision? Like, I have a few clients that are like, they'll say, like, I trust you, I just want to know why, like, what is your thought process behind this? And I'm like, great, I'm glad you asked, I'll tell you exactly why, versus being like, I don't think that's a good idea, or I think I'm going to try this, or I need to cut my calories or whatever. Because then it feels like you're in an argument with them.
I talked about this on a couple podcasts ago, but I'll say it again because it's very relevant. With our new following, we are getting people who aren't necessarily in the CrossFit or athletic community, and they're coming with these really intense and strong like beliefs and values about nutrition. It's like very much diet culture. So like, oh, carbs are bad, or, I'm eating too less and that's causing me to not be able to lose weight. All of these like just really bad misconceptions. And so they see us on Instagram. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so refreshing. They're telling me it just is easy and I can eat carbs and I can do all this. And it's really just about tracking my calories and figuring that out. And they'll tell me what to do and I'll just do it and I'll lose weight. And it's so attractive and it's so new. And then they come in and they question everything that you're saying because it doesn't align with what they know. It's like, but what you know has led you to this place where you're unhappy with your body composition, with your health, with your wellness, with your mindset. Like, why not just like try to just let that go and really trust something new? It's like, sometimes new is scary, but if you never trust it, then you're stuck in the past. Nothing's ever going to change. And so that's another element of trust. That's all I have.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to make sure to point that out.
Great minds think alike.
Alex, they sure do.
Lynsey, you're probably thinking that too, right?
Yeah, same exact thing.
Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Okay, low ego. Embrace being bad at something.
Well, yeah, and I think that when we're talking about ego specifically, I think there are a lot of people with like fragile egos out there, and that's not...
I'm glad you didn't say mostly men.
No, I know plenty of women who have fragile egos too. But it's hard for people like that to accurately see themselves and understand like where they're at with their capabilities. And it's hard for people with fragile egos or ego problems to accept like not being good at something. And so it's almost like there's an initial struggle, and then there's like some outside factor that pops up, or it's the program, or it's the coaching, or something that is by the way that they perceive it outside of their locus of control, that is negatively impacting their ability to adhere to the program or get results or whatever. And that the fact that always pops up prohibits them from ever really moving towards whatever their goals are. So they can't get at, people with ego problems can't get out of their own way for long enough to even begin to make changes.
Well said.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, Yeah, I think like if they assume that they already know something, like if I were to hire a nutrition coach again, I think like I would be inquisitive, but I think I would also just really try to check my ego at the door. And again, it's like a trust thing, but just like be like, I think I know this already, but maybe like the way they say it or the way they teach it will like unlock something or help me in some way or help me think about it in a different way. So why don't I just like fully listen, like not skip over anything like in the plan because I think I already know it or whatever, and really try to get the most out of this that I can. Like that's what I would try to do if I was, doing like picking up nutrition coaching.
You're hired.
Yeah.
Well, I think you see that
as a client of mine.
Great.
We see that a lot with people when they sign up. You get a lot in intake forms. They'll say, I know a lot about nutrition, or, I've been doing this a long time. I just like, I need someone to hold me accountable.
Yeah.
And that's, but there's like, they definitely make sure to communicate that they are, at least they perceive themselves to be an expert in nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you might be an expert in nutrition, but you're not an expert in behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not an expert in how to like actually make changes, and those things go hand in hand. And like often those folks are very, very resistant to doing things outside of what they believe to be true, even though the way that they tend to operate by themselves, like they know that it's prohibitive to like actually like moving forward.
Mm.
It's interesting.
It is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
The next one, number 5, is patience. And Meredith recently talked about this, like she noted it on a post about the
Plateau of latent potential.
And the thing about
Valley of disappointment.
Sorry, it was tip of the tongue phenomenon. And she mentioned active patience.
Patience, or
I'll
like
let Meredith take it from here.
Thanks.
Gosh, my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna just put my microphone down and leave.
Just hand that thing over. I'm just gonna let you take it from here, man. All right, Alex, I got it. Thank you.
Wait, where are we at in the podcast? I just want to make a note so I know where you need to cut that out.
Yeah, so the idea, well, it's kind of two different topics, but like fundamentally, like results tend to take longer than people want them to or they expect them to. And that's for a lot of reasons, but it just is the way that it is. And so we've talked about a number of times what patience actually means. And patience is not just like waiting around for things to happen. It's more of an active process. It's like, it's what you're actively doing while results are taking longer than you want them to. And so I call it active patience. I call it being aggressively patient. And, because without some doing, without some action, I think people would kind of get bored with the monotony of it, and they want to make changes. It's like, well, this isn't working fast enough, so surely there's something else I could be doing that could either, make things happen faster, or at the very least be more entertaining for me. And what's interesting is, so today I posted on Tactic a video that I shared it from Ali LeMay's page. She posted it last week, and it's just like, some clips of her throughout her CrossFit journey specifically, but decided to change her lifestyle.
She was on a podcast.
She's been on a few, yeah.
Yeah, on our podcast.
Yes.
She was on it.
So you can look for guest episodes, Alex and LeMay. I think she'd be back in the 50s or 60s probably. I'll put it in the show notes. I'll go find it. But anyway, she's been a client of mine for almost, that's great, like 5 years. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
She came to our wedding all the way from Vermont.
From Vermont, yeah. So she decided to make a change 8 years ago, and one of those changes was going to a CrossFit gym, and that's been a pretty important part of her life ever since then. And the visual changes for Ali are quite remarkable, and it's really like it's tip of the iceberg. Like you can see her, and like, wow, she lost so much weight. But that's like, that doesn't even tell the story. But anyway, so I posted that video on our page today, and I just said, it's, 8 years. She has been at this for 8 years. And kind of the moral of the story was like, the results that you want, like, you have to be okay with the fact that those are going to occur on a scale of years and not weeks, not months. This is not a 6-month thing for most people. It's literal years. And the only way you really keep those results is when the things that you do to get them in the first place they become things that you just do. Like, it's not, you don't actively have to try to go to the gym or try to fix your nutrition. Like, you just make these decisions because they're the decisions that you make now. Like, that's your identity. And I got a DM. I put it in our story and basically said, something about it, and you watch the video. And there's a DM that came through on Tactic, and it was this person that said, "Oh, I was afraid of this." And I said, "How come?" And she said, "Years takes patience." Indicating I was afraid that you guys were going to say that it takes a long time, that it's going to take years instead of weeks or instead of months. And my response back was like, well, time is going to pass no matter what. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the crazy thing is people for some reason are not okay with the fact that, progress does take years. But why is that? Like,
what else are you going to do?
Yeah. Like, where do you
also,
have to be?
time goes by fast.
So fast.
I mean, it wasn't long ago that I was like 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, it was like, it feels like it's been only 2 years. Yeah. Like, I'm only 22. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, well, I find that line of thought crazy. It's crazy. I mean, the only way that makes sense is if I say, like, it's going to be years of, like, you doing something that you absolutely hate. And you, like, imagine someone who hates running. I'm like, the only way you can make progress is if you run. And you have to run for 8 years. Mm-hmm. And you have to like it.
Mm-hmm.
Then running probably isn't a good goal.
Yeah.
Whatever running goal.
Just, like, find something else that you enjoy. But it's like, there's no path where you get to be both, like, a lazy fuck and also have amazing results. Like, that reality doesn't exist.
But also,
I'm gonna
to say to her, if you need to respond again, or she's listening to this podcast, it's not that it's not like you do this. There's not latent potential for 8 years or 10 years or 12 years. Like, you're going to start seeing benefits in 4, 5, 6 months, even if it's not this drastic physical change or health change. Like, you will see change in 6 months. You will see change in a year. In 3 years, I mean, Ali LeMay probably had made a ton of progress in 3 years, again in 6 years, again in 8 years. Like, it's not, and there's no timeline. Like, Ali's not done. Mm-hmm. This is just the beginning for her.
I mean, really, like, the true progress curve is like, it's like that curve that we posted. So exponential. So there's like that lag, and then it goes up. And then at some point it becomes asymptotic to some upper limit. Like, you just like it, like, progress and gains.
And then you get old and you just got to try to hang on for your life.
You just try to maintain what you've accomplished.
Happens around the age of 30 or 40.
Say 35.
That's what the internet says.
Not there yet.
Hormones and stuff. But yeah, and it's like so Ali, she lost 100 pounds. I mean, she's over 100 pounds. And I think she reached the 100-pound milestone like 4 years in, 5 years in, something like that. And it's not like she has kept losing weight. I wouldn't even say that there was like a rate at which she was losing body weight, but it's not like that continued. But, like, it doesn't mean that she's still not making progress in other ways. But, like, what, are you just going to keep losing weight until you're, like, gone? There has to be some, which is crazy because some people, the rate of weight change slows down because they're literally getting smaller and they're like, why? I don't know what's going on. I'm like, well, I just want you to, like, can we just extrapolate this for a little bit? And I want you to tell me, if you keep losing weight at this rate for the next 1 year, how much do you weigh? They're like, 68 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane. People's heads, man.
And I think too, like, it happens so often where people set a goal weight, they hit it, and then they're like, okay, now I want to be 10 pounds lighter. So it's like, this is maybe not related to patience, but it's just like there has to be some enjoyment in how you get there, because I don't think like achieving that goal is going to feel the way that you think it's going to feel, which we've talked about before with like goal setting and stuff.
Yeah.
So then you get there, it doesn't feel how you want to feel. It doesn't feel how you thought it was going to feel. So then you set another goal and you get there and it still doesn't feel that way. And again, like there's nowhere where else to go. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but you have to enjoy the process.
Otherwise the goalpost keeps moving.
Yeah.
And it's like the
actual goalpost goes away and then you're just lost.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah, because that like arrival fallacy starts to kick in and you're like, well, this doesn't feel as good as when I set the goal, and you realize like, and if you're, I guess, self-aware enough, you probably start to realize like it's the setting of the goal that is enjoyable for me, not the achievement of it and not the process. So I need to find something that's like actually enjoyable to do so that you get to stop with the like, okay, I'm going to do this next. And like, I know I didn't finish that, but now I'm going to do this. And it's like, I mean, we all know those people.
Yeah.
Right?
I think there's like, there's a difference between I want to get to 150 pounds versus like, I want to be healthy and like be comfortable with but I know that's comfortable with my body composition, or it's like, that's loaded, but it's very similar to saying like, I want to start running and like, I want to be a really good runner versus I want to run a marathon. So like, what happens after you run a marathon? You just go back to what you were doing before. Like, what was the point of doing the marathon then? But if your goal is to be a runner to the point where you can like just run a marathon and then you continue running, I feel like that's a little bit more productive. Same with like being healthy. That's like, I want to be healthy. That's like a very long-term goal. Maybe you say, I'm going to put 4 months of coaching, commit to 4 months of coaching to learn what I need to do to continue to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So maybe patience, maybe to bring it back to the topic of patience, in this, like in that way, patience is what you do while you kind of like adopt and live into a new identity versus like, you know, someone who just wants to run a marathon and they run the marathon and then they stop. Like arguably that's a very impatient person. And I don't think that person gets to say, I'm a marathoner. Like, no, you ran a marathon. Mm-hmm. If you're someone who, you know, maybe you run a marathon and you're like, hell yeah, I like that. I love the process of training for it. I'm going to keep running. That's a marathoner. And there's patience in that. There's patience in adopting that mindset and adopting that identity.
And it's easier to be patient when it is just part of who you are. And
I would argue that there's not even like an element of patience anymore. You're so in the process. Like you're almost, for me, it's like, I want the next day to come.
Yeah.
Like I'm impatient to like keep working on this.
Mm-hmm.
In what ways in life, here we go, tangent.
Here we go.
Would you say that you struggle with patience?
Snatching.
Snatching? That's yours? Yeah.
I would say for me, like on the topic of running, I'm not impatient there because I love running. And I'm like, if I never got better at it, I would be okay with that because I genuinely love doing it every day. Same thing with working out. I would say business maybe more so. Business. I'm like impatient. Like I want the business to grow and there's some months where it doesn't, or it's like, I don't know it's going to happen and it's hard for me to be patient. Even though I know I'm still in it each and every day, doing exactly what I have to do to what I think that needs to be done to grow the business. But it's hard because it's like, oh, I just want it to keep growing. Like there's a lot of factors and it's like, I wish it was linear growth. Every month it goes up a certain number of, you know, clients or income or followers or whatever measurements there are.
You wish it were predictable.
I do. But all you can do is say, what do I have control over that's worked in the past? Or maybe we meet with a mentor and see what else we can do. So that's me. I also think I don't want to talk too much about this, but I'm also like trying to lean out a little bit for running, for performance. And I know that this takes time, but I'm like, every day I hit my macros and I'm like, I get on the scale. I'm like, I want the scale to go down because I've got this goal. But I also know that it takes a lot of time. Like it could take 2 months to get to my goal.
What if would you feel differently if the significant digits on the scale were different? Like if it were sensitive enough to go out to the 100th instead of the 10th. And so it's like, 140.44, and then the next day is 140.42.
But it wouldn't even be like that because it still goes up and down by like a pound every couple days because it's never going to be linear.
Yeah.
It's difficult, even though I see this day after day with my clients and I tell them day after day, like, weight loss is not linear.
So what you need is a
and
scale.
Also, my weight loss goal is based, I don't even want to say weight loss. It's based on performance where I was around when I ran Boston.
I just had it like, I just had a legitimate $1 million idea. And I can't believe I'm going to say this on the air, but we need to come up with a scale that's blinded. And it only gives you your average weight at the end of the week. So you get on the scale every day and it's like, thank you for your weight.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to see it. You get on the scale the next day. Thank you for your weight. You don't get to see it. At the end of 7 days, you get to see a weight. You do it again the next week. At the end of the next 7 days, stop. Let me finish.
Or you get to see like an average.
It's still going to fluctuate, especially for females.
But it's going to fluctuate less. You could set it on a monthly interval.
And it won't have the daily impact some people experience.
Exactly. I have to write this down.
Okay. I will go back to me, talking about me. At least I know enough. Logically, it won't send me into a tizzy. It's like, oh my gosh, my weight went up a pound. It doesn't matter. This is normal. It's okay. For some people, that just isn't the case. They can't talk themselves out of it. It's not working. I should quit. Or my coach is an idiot. Whatever it may be.
You suck, Alex. You're fired.
But anyway,
3 months later, I need to come back.
What is, and I just want to qualify this. I'm not like, I don't need to lose weight. Yeah. It's like sometimes when you can have a performance based goal that's weight related.
Yeah, you were a little lighter for Boston, and I think that had a positive impact on your run.
Yeah, and I just want to do that again. And it's like, yeah. Anyway, Meredith, what are you impatient about?
Lines. Any line.
Oh, like any waiting line. In a line? Like a queue?
Yes. If there's a way, like if there's a line and then there was like a VIP line and it's like you can pay $50 and skip that line every single time, I would do it. Every single time. And like $100, I would do it. Like if there is a way to not wait in a line and expedite, like if I can fast pass my life, I'm going to do that.
Like the people at Starbucks that wait in the drive-thru instead of just going in and there's like no one in the store.
It's like,
I can't handle that.
Just get out of your car. Get out. Yeah, lines. Yeah. I don't know why. It's just like they're very unpredictable. You never know when there's going to be a line, and I always find that there's a line at like the worst possible time when you like have to go to the bathroom. Line. The line at Red Rocks at that bathroom, I was like, this is outrageous. I was looking around. I was like, surely there's like a VIP. No, okay. I hate it. It's horrible.
But what about like in life? Like I mean, more on the topic of coaching and like long-term goals.
My long-term goal is to make enough money where I can pay my way out of any line. Like, I don't know why that's like an irrelevant. That's it. Like VIP, everything. Okay. In life, probably, I would say sometimes I'm a bit impatient with my ability to learn things. Like I wish that like I could just like watch a tutorial video on like Adobe After Effects and like immediately understand it, but I can't. So it's like it's like the committing. Like I know I have to commit to like hours and hours and hours to like learn something new that is eventually going to be useful, and I sometimes have a hard time with that.
But you stick with it usually.
I do, because we don't have anyone else that works for us that knows how to use Adobe After Effects. It's got to be me. But also I find it really enjoyable. It's like an intersection of, I'm going to go on a tangent here.
Poor Lynsey's like, why am I here?
I find the most enjoyment for me anyways is figuring out creative ways of delivering information. Like scientific, nutrition, behavior change, that kind of thing. And for me, like figuring out how to use software, how to edit videos, how to put it out there, like it's the intersection of two things that I love, which are science and like working with people on nutrition and like technology and creativity. So it's like, it's the perfect junction for me, even though it's extremely time consuming. But I find a lot of fulfillment in that part of the work, even more so, like more every day. I enjoy that part of it. Whereas like, I think some people are just way more into the coaching or way more into learning about like the more groundbreaking and upcoming science. And like, I enjoy that stuff, but I'm like, how can I make it into a video? You know?
Yeah. So Lynsey, when you say you're impatient with snatching, if you have like a bad snatch day and you only snatch, what's your max? Like 170?
165.
165. So if one day you only, you max out, like say in your programming, it says like hit a max single. And you, for some reason that day you only hit 155, which I'm sure has happened to you.
100%.
Do you quit or do you like, what do you tell yourself to keep going back? Do you get mad at your coach? Like what's your thought process and how do you show up the next day?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think like in general, I'm like pretty good at being patient as far as like the overall like goal of where I want to go in CrossFit. But with snatching specifically, because it hasn't moved for so long and because I know it's this like particular hole that like just at minimum, it's just not there. And so, yeah, I think I like it with it in particular, I just get so frustrated. But if I have enough patience and like ability to like look at it objectively to know that if I'm maxing out and I hit 155 instead of 165, that it's okay. And I'm going to come in again the next day and I'm going to keep trying and I'm going to talk to my coach about it. And we're going to like talk about what I can be doing. Like I actually had this conversation today and I'm going to do like a month of focusing on Olympic lifting and I'm going to go see a coach again and stuff for it. So I think like for me and maybe for anyone struggling with patience is recognizing that frustration and then coming up with a plan that you feel good about. And like, that's such a benefit of a coach is like, they'll tell you if you're just not being patient enough. And so you can trust them and then if there's something else, they can help you figure out like a solution. Like my coach today was like, yeah, like, why don't you try going to see another Olympic lifting coach? And maybe there's like some technique thing that you can figure out. And then that really helps me be patient. Like I feel really good about that now. And I feel like, and maybe there's like some expectation tied to that like, okay, I'm going to do this and now I'm going to get better at snatching. But there's also like, I also just want to like at the end of it all say that like I tried everything. Like even if my snatch doesn't improve, that I think it's like worth trying. So I can at least say like I really gave that a shot.
Do you ever find yourself saying the words I should?
Yes.
Like I should be able to snatch what this person's snatching or I should be able to snatch 180.
Yep. I'm like very aware of it too. And I know I hate it when like other people say it. What do you mean you should? And you guys have talked about this before too. Like based off what?
Yeah. I get that.
There's this YouTube, this is a tangent too. There's this YouTube video of this, it's called Marcel the Shell with shoes on. Have you seen it?
No.
You should watch it. It's so funny. Anyways, they're like, he's literally just a shell with shoes on and he's talking and he's like, people say my head's too big for my body. And I say, compared to what? That's what I think about when people say they should be somewhere. So anyways, yeah, I think like, I catch myself doing it. I'm not like, I do say it. And then I'm like, I think of Marcel the Shell with shoes on. 'Cause yeah, you should be where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough. I think it's almost human nature to compare, to have expectations in all aspects of life. I mean, I have expectations of friends and family to behave a certain way, to think of my feelings in certain circumstances, but you know, they should have, or I should be, all these things. I think that's totally normal and natural. But I think catching yourself and realizing like saying that or thinking that isn't helpful. And instead thinking critically about what you could be doing differently. So that's cool. I think yeah, that's humanizing.
Hmm.
My last thing I'll add to patients is coaching, gym memberships, naturopaths, doctors, whatever. A lot of that stuff costs money. And a lot of the goals around health and wellness take time. And so my advice would be like, invest in yourself, but make the most of the investment. So for instance, coaching, like if you're going to invest for 6 months of coaching, make sure that you're understanding like, and putting in an effort to learn so that you can set yourself up for long-term success. Like we try with our clients to create an environment where there's learning. For example, we love tracking because it's a learning tool. But if somebody falls into the trap of thinking that tracking is going to get you success, it's not. Like I have tons of people who are, or I've had people who have tracked and not had success. But it's like, well, are you tracking accurately? What are you like? Is tracking? Are you just logging what you're eating? Like, what is tracking doing for you? Is it changing your habits? That's just one example. And so, like, long-term success requires like the willingness to learn. Oh, I'm going into the next one, but requires like active patience and then the educational aspect, which brings us to the next one, which is willingness to learn.
Yeah. Which I think starts with admitting, like acknowledging what you don't know. Like you don't know what you don't know, being okay with that. And then the difference I think in learning versus being patient or vulnerable, which are more, even though we're talking about patience in a more active way, it is still a more passive activity. And, being vulnerable certainly is learning requires, it requires effort. There's an aspect of it that's just inherently difficult because it's like you're operating outside of what you know and what your current experience is and potentially what you even believe or what you have believed. And so there's an element of difficulty with learning, and some people just take longer. But learning, and this is I think the important part of what we do and what any good nutrition program does is there's always going to be an element of education to it because, for so long, and even now, I wouldn't say it's gotten any better. The nutrition industry is it relies on smoke and mirrors and on ambiguity and on confusion because, like, fundamentally, companies don't always want customers to know what's going on because then they won't come back when the company releases some new version of what they're doing. Like they want people to have results. They don't want people to understand how or why they're having those results because then they could potentially theoretically go forward on their own and, live happily ever after, which is, I think, like from a moral and ethical standpoint, probably on the wrong side of that line. But willingness to learn simply, that's a prerequisite for being able to take the training wheels off at some point, like leave the nest, go forward. Like we don't want customers for life. Even like I say that and I have clients for years and I love them, but like we don't want people to rely on us because without us, they don't know how to continue to have success.
We want people to pay us because they love talking to us, not because they need us.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think too, just to touch on tracking as like part of a willingness to learn. Like I think one of the reasons that we suggest tracking is because it is such a learning tool. And it's so valuable when a client just starts out and they've never tracked before and they log everything that they've been eating just to see where they're at. And then they learn, they're like, oh, I actually eat a lot of fat and not very much protein. And just like that awareness is such a key first step. So yeah, I think just tracking itself really fits into that willingness to learn, and not that we're like pushing people to do this forever. It's just like such a valuable teaching tool.
Yeah. And I think that's, sometimes people will ask like, well, where do you think on the internet, like on Instagram, which I'm like, why are you asking this question? I don't know anything about you. Where should I start for macros? Like, I know I need to change my nutrition and I don't know where to start. And my response is always like, start tracking what you're eating right now.
Yeah.
Start there. Start with what you're doing, because it's way easier to say, okay, this is my current diet pattern, and then make changes based on what you're currently doing versus trying to just flip the whole thing on its head. It's so hard. Like, at least if you know where you're starting, and that's a good part of the scientific method and of education, then you can just pick off the low hanging fruit. You can say, like, well, I'm eating a lot of fat because I'm eating fatty meat. So I'll just swap my 80% ground beef for 90%. I'll buy chicken breast instead of chicken thighs. I'll keep an eye on the fish that I select. I'll stop snacking on nuts. Like, okay, we're going to remove some fat from the diet. Let's see how that goes. Let's make that change and then see what happens. And then decide if we want to add in a layer of complexity, because like maybe that has the intended effect. And you do that until it doesn't work. And then you say, okay, like, what do I want to happen next?
Yeah.
Which
And
again
now
is,
you objectively understand how the changes that you made impacted where you went.
which again is so much more valuable than like a meal plan. Like, you don't learn anything by just being told exactly what to eat. And so then you're either on it or you're off it, and you don't know what to do if you're off of it.
Like, what if you're on a meal plan and it's like your mom's birthday?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know exactly what happens. Like, it's like, well, it was my mom's birthday and I had one slice of cake and then I didn't know what to do. So I just said, fuck it. Like, that's the problem with meal plans. It's like, well, there's a reality where you can just like, enjoy the day. Don't worry about it. But there's certainly a reality where you can have cake and it will probably fit just fine in your day.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not on the meal plan, like, how do you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the goal of our program isn't to, and I think I'll touch on this because I think there is a preconceived notion when some people come in that the goal is to track.
Mm-hmm.
But really, tracking it's this light that shines onto your life that helps you understand, like, okay, what's going on? So, and what I mean by that is, like, why didn't you track this weekend? It's not like, oh, I'll track this week, don't worry. It's, why didn't you track? How come tracking didn't happen? And some people are like, I forgot. Some people, it's like, for some people, the answer is like, I'm a shit show.
Mm-hmm.
And then that allows you to say, like, let's talk about prepping. Like, it's not that you track or don't track, or you track and you make progress. It's like, tracking is the result of a culmination of little habits that you have. Like, strategies and a foundation of good behavior that allows you to log your food and have results. So it's like, tracking isn't correlated with success.
Mm-hmm.
It's
like an indicator.
It's an indicator
Proof
that you're
of-
doing all of the things that need to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, there are plenty of people out there who have success and don't track.
Yeah. And if your answer is like, I don't want to track, is like, seeing the numbers really messes with my head, or I just can't be on my phone all the day, like during the day, then tracking isn't for you.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that like all the things that you need to do to track don't have to happen either.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fundamental pattern is the same. The diet pattern is the same. The behaviors are the same. Like, whether you choose to track them or not is totally personal. We find that people who track their macros tend to just understand a little bit quicker, like, what their patterns are, versus someone who it's difficult if you don't know a lot about nutrition, which a lot of people don't, for me to say, okay, we're going to do a structured eating plan. Like, I want to see protein, carbs, vegetable, healthy fat. Like, someone who doesn't know anything about nutrition, I can show them the picture of like what a plate should look like, but it's hard to put that into practice.
Mm-hmm.
Versus macros, which just allows you to like quantitatively see what's in the food that you're eating, even if you visually don't quite understand like what that is going to look like on a plate yet. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think too, like, with like, to go back to like the coaching aspect of this, tracking and coaching just allows you to see yourself like through someone else's vantage point. So like Alex said, like, it might be because you're a shit show, and like, there's nothing wrong. I'm a shit show. Like, if I went to a coach, like a behavior coach or life coach or whatever, they'd probably be like, Meredith, you're kind of a shit show. Like you're not doing things during your day
very validated
that you want to do because you're not doing a good job organizing your time. And like, deep down, I probably know that. I mean, I'm saying it, so I understand it. But like, you get that objectivity from a coach, and tracking macros and working with a coach is a really important part of like seeing yourself, because it's difficult. Like if I didn't have a coach, if I wasn't working with someone, I could probably just go through life feeling like I'm doing perfectly fine. When in reality, because I want to improve and because I want to be, a good athlete and a successful business owner and just like a good person, like I'm able now to identify certain holes in my personality. I don't think it's my personality, just the way I live my life that I can improve on if I want to, or I can say like, you know what, that's just the way I am, and I accept that.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what you don't know what you don't know, and working with a coach allows you to see yourself from someone else's point of view, which is extraordinarily valuable.
Yeah. It would be like if I see a client who comes in, kind of what Lynsey said, and they're just tracking, I don't say, your protein's only at 60 grams. Let's get that up to 140 and kind of expect them to just like do it and track it. It's like, your protein is at 60 grams. Like, I'm noticing you don't have any protein in lunch. Is that because, you're out and about? Is it because you don't prep your food? And then they'll say like, oh, I never have any leftovers, or I never have food prepped. And then you can start talking about the habit of food prepping or making different decisions when you're out and about. It goes back to those habits or behaviors. What's in your control? Like, the numbers aren't really in your control, but like the things that get you to those numbers are. Hopefully I'm explaining this. I feel a little miscombobulated.
Miscombobulated.
Delete that.
I thought you were handing over your mic.
Okay, last one. You guys can take this one away.
I talked a lot on the last one. So
Lynsey, talk a little bit about the 7th pillar of being self-motivated and taking personal responsibility.
Yeah, so I think like we can suggest things all day, but we can't do any of it for the client. So the client has to, I guess, recognize again that they're in the spot that they're in for a reason, and then take the suggestions of the person that they hired, us, and like put them into actual action, and kind of recognize that, I guess you just want them to be really like self-aware and to know that like a lot of things happen due to their personal choices, and that they did have control over like things that led up to, so like say like they didn't hit their macros or they didn't get their workout in or something like that, like just taking that on and like objectively seeing that they had something to do with that and they weren't just a victim of their circumstances, and that hiring a coach isn't gonna just like magically fix everything. They actually have to be an active participant in the goal and in the journey, is really, really important and valuable.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a client, or talk about the difference between having a client who's very self-motivated and autonomous and a client that you feel is doing it for the coach for you? Have you had that experience before? Yeah,
I think like some clients will be like, I'll get the question like, can you look at my logs? Did I do good today? And I'm like, well, I feel like you can answer that. like, or like with the progress photo thing, like, do you see a difference? Which I like understand where that question's coming from. Because it is hard to like objectively look at yourself. Sometimes you can't see the differences, the changes. But I guess, yeah, it's just a little bit more of like a reliance on me. And I don't necessarily, again, want to like encourage being like super hypercritical of like the photos or like physical changes. So that one's like a tough one. But I think mostly, yeah, just that like the like, can you look at my logs thing and like tell me if I'm doing a good job, or like, am I doing a good job type thing. Or like, I didn't hear back from you in time, so I made like a silly decision. I don't know, like, so I did this because I didn't know what to do. I think that just like there's too much reliance on the coach to tell you exactly what to do, or to kind of do it for you, when instead of like that willingness to learn and willingness to take it on your own.
Yeah.
I definitely also, I have clients though, like on that note, where I feel like I'm always hearing about things after the fact. Like it's not even, they don't even try to reach out to like, to have a conversation about certain difficulties or certain like events that they're trying to work through, travel, things that can present roadblocks from a nutrition standpoint. It's a lot. It's like, I hear about it the next day or the next check-in, like, well, I traveled and I was in the airport and there's no good option. So I just blew up my fat and And it's, and I'm thinking like, we could have had a conversation about this on Monday. I could have been probably helpful in helping you come up with a plan that was going to be like workable, instead of like you then got into a situation where you just totally blasted your macros because you were frustrated that there weren't any good options. And I have people who it's that over and over again. Yeah. It's like, I'm always just like, it's retroactive, and it's like, I'm not going to punish you. Like, I'm not going to tell you like, oh, that was so bad, like you can't do that again. Like, which is, I feel like some people want that. Like they want criticism. They want like harsh reality. They want a coach to be hard on them. But I'm like, well, that's not good. That's not good coaching, and it's not helpful. Like, I'm not going to do that. That is not me. Like, I'm not Jillian Michaels. Yeah. I don't know if you can hire her, but if that's what you need, figure it out. Yeah. Versus like, I am here to facilitate productive conversation so that you can uphold the commitments that you're trying to make to yourself. That's it. It's like a facilitator versus it's like constantly seeking praise from coaches or trainers. Like we work with people who have personal trainers, and sometimes people who like, they just started in a gym for like 2 weeks and they're like, my personal trainer says he sees more definition in my deltoids. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I know. There's no point. Like, it's been 2 weeks that your personal trainer is saying that because he wants you to keep paying him. Yeah. Like, it's just, again, like, I think that there are many, many ethical lines that get crossed in fitness and nutrition. That's like, personal trainers cross them all of the time. But it's like, someone can send me a progress picture and it's going to be like, well, how do you feel about this? Like, what do you see? What are you feeling like in conjunction with this progress photo? Like, what are some of the things that you're noticing with your training, with your energy levels? Like, it's never going to be like, yeah, I can see more ab definition. Like, you're looking, the best I ever do is like, you're looking really strong. Yeah. Like, that's my,
the best I do is like, how are you feeling? Yeah. And like, I'm glad you feel amazing and you're happy. I'll say good job. I'll say, yeah, you look strong. It's performance based. Yeah. But yeah, an example of my most successful clients, Friday morning, either I see a message from them at 7 or 8 a.m., which they know is when I kind of start work, saying, hey, I have something going on this weekend. It's my sister's kid's birthday, my niece's birthday, and there's going to be a lot of cake and there's going to be snacks, and I'm really worried. I'm thinking of doing this. I'm going to have a big meal before I go so that I don't end up hungry. I'm going to bring bubbly water. I'm going to bring a veggie platter so I know that there'll be a good option for me, and I'm going to limit myself to 1/2 slice of cake. I think that's going to be a really good balance for me. And I'm like, that is amazing. Yes. Or like, hey, what's wrong with having a full slice of cake? It's your favorite cake, whatever. You talk about that. Or they'll say, I'm really worried about this birthday party I have to go to. Can we talk about it? It's like, yeah, what will success look like for you? And then they have to think ahead, like, how will I feel at the end of the day? What will make me feel good about my decisions? And then they kind of have to backtrack. It's like a mental exercise. Really makes them think. Another example is I'll say, hey, what do you have going on this weekend? And again, the most successful client will tell me what they have going on. An unsuccessful client will either ghost me or they'll say, not sure.
Yeah. Not much.
Not much. And it's like, And then on Monday, it's like, well, I went out to this concert, and it's like, well, why didn't you tell me? I wasn't just asking about your weekend because
I think that's what people
I
think
want to know if you're going on a date. Like, I want to know so that we can plan for this. It's like, why I'm checking in with you on Friday. And then Monday can be like a post-mortem, hopefully not in the negative sense, but like, let's talk about this. Was it successful? If it wasn't, that's okay. What could we do differently? In the moment, do you feel like you could have made a different decision? Whatever the conversation. But yeah, the like after, like we get that from performance-based athletes too. It's like, oh, I bonked on my 20-mile run. It's like,
I didn't even know you were doing a 20-mile run.
Yeah.
I ran a race this weekend. What?
Yeah.
I could have helped you. What are you doing? But the clients that are really proactive and like using me and allowing me to help them, those always end up being the most successful, whatever their goals are. And you know, another example is a good one is I'll say on Monday, like, how are you feeling about the week ahead? And to say, do you want to set a couple small goals? There's the client that says, sure, what are you thinking? Versus, yeah, I'm thinking maybe this, and this. What do you think? Or I'll say, if someone says, what do you think? I'm like, well, I'm going to ask you what you're thinking. And they're like, well, I don't know. Aren't you supposed to be the one setting goals? No, I can't set your goals.
I don't live your life.
I mean, I could set your goals based on my lifestyle. And trust me, you don't want that. Yeah. But, well, maybe for most people. But anyways, like there's just like a proactiveness in their trajectory and knowing themselves and teach and like being open, like humoring me. Like, hey, no, you set your goals. Don't eye roll. And if you do, at least play along. But I find those to be the most successful. There's a lot of like responsibility, personal responsibility.
Radical responsibility.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think there's a way to cultivate that in clients. Like if they understand, okay, this isn't going to be just me being told what to do and they come around to it, there's a really good chance that they're going to have success. It's the people that are very resistant to that. That you tend to struggle with. But
yeah, when they're like open to the question, well, what do you think? And then they're like actually like, oh, what do I think?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I mean, I start every conversation with like, hey, I noticed you started tracking. How's that going? Have you noticed anything?
Yeah.
And that's like immediate, like, okay, you have to look at yourself. And I think that gets it going. But
well, yeah. And it kind of relies like we talked about with Meg, like self-determination theory, like relies heavily on two things that I think are especially important in nutrition. And that's autonomy, which is feeling like you have some control over, you know, the trajectory and the decisions that are being made. And then competence, which is that like you feel like you have it within your ability. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to reach outside of your comfort zone or outside of your ability, but like striving is done intelligently and it's done to push you to learn and to improve, but not push you all the way into to failure. And so that's why we could set goals for people, but that's probably not going to make them feel very competent because they're going to fail at them. Because it's not 100% of the time, but it's very likely if someone else sets your goal for you, that it might be too hard. And that's going to affect like your feeling of competence. It takes away autonomy in the decision-making process, which people may not even realize is important, but it is important. And so without having to explain that to every single client, like that's why it's always a lot of questions. It's always a lot of like, well, what do you think? What would make you feel successful? How did that go this weekend? Like, do you feel confident in your ability to stick with that commitment? And it's to build competence, build confidence, while also like allowing for a great deal of autonomy in the decision-making process as a whole.
Yeah, agreed. To wrap this up, I think to end on a really positive note, most people that we work with are all these. I think most of our clients do see success. I was asked a question the other day, an inquiry email came through and said, what's your success rate?
What would you say your success rate is?
I don't know.
But also, how do you even define success?
It took me a sec. I really had to think about that question. Yeah. I said 100%. Because I think every single person, whether they last for 2 weeks or they last for 2 years, they learn something.
Yeah.
They learn something. And I think that's success. I don't think it's like, you know, did they achieve their goal weight? That's not how I rate success, because like you said, it's a moving goalpost for a lot of people. And most people we work with realize like, weight doesn't really matter that much. It's about how I feel. It's about performance, whatever. But yeah, that was like an interesting question. And I do think we as coaches try to cultivate all of these pillars as well. You don't have to come in with them. I mean, you don't have to come in being ready to open up your entire life to one of us. I think creating a safe space, it takes two. And I think that's the pillar. These are also pillars of good coaches as well.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that all applies the reverse direction.
100%. Because it's a hard way to coach. Like some days I just want to tell people what to do and move on with my day. But I'm like,
let's talk.
What do you want to do? You know, it's like, because I can see, I can very easily see for people, if you would just do this one thing, it would probably work really well. But it's no good in telling people that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough job, but it's fulfilling, and you get better at it the more you do it. And I think most people who sign up, like I said earlier, investing in yourself and wellness is not cheap. And most people who sign up are ready to do it. And that's really fun for us. It's like we get people who are like, let's do this. And that's, yeah. I think it's easy. The last thing I'll say is like, it's easy to get caught up in those people that kind of like grind your gears. But for the most part, there's not that many people out there like that, at least not signing up with us.
Oh,
maybe you're a person who's like, I want to be that person. Then you'll sign up.
Yeah.
Just want to be that. Yeah. That's cool. This has been really great. Really quick, Lynsey, what, I just want to go back to the success rate thing. I'm not going to make you name a number. We all know it's 100%.
Yeah. It's 100. I'd say maybe 99.
At the end of the day, I mean, you have clients that you've had for a really long time, just like we do, but like what makes a successful client? Like, it's like qualitatively, how would you define success for someone?
Yeah, I think just really like adopting either like a different or an evolved mindset around this like new lifestyle that they're trying to create, and how to integrate it in like all times of their lives, and like when they can push a little bit harder and when they can come back. And like, I think of the ones that have been with me the longest, it's like they all have had success in like, I think they're almost all like weight loss type clients, the ones that I'm thinking of. They have had that like weight loss, and whether they're like exactly at their weight goal now or not, they've just like adopted so many like different things into their lives. And like, again, with like the openness, we talk about things coming up, and how we want to handle it. And sometimes that means like not tracking at all. And sometimes that means like it's always just like moving and like thinking about what we're going to encounter and how we're going to like fit this like new kind of like lifestyle that they've adopted in the last like 2 or 3 years into what they're doing now. So I guess it's kind of like an adaptability and like a commitment to this newish like lifestyle.
Yeah,
I would say.
I like that. I once heard or read, or I don't think I came up with this, although I wish I did, which is like to stay, like to move on to a different, like a new path, or to like start striving towards a goal requires kind of a rigid commitment to what that goal is. And then like, that's what it's required to get onto the path. But to stay on the path requires a great deal of like flexibility, and it's a very dynamic process. So I think when you can, like you said, when you get people to like lean into that and accept it, that's a really like good feeling. It applies to any goal, like performance goal, weight loss goal, health goal.
I noticed that too, like I think about it a lot too, like going through like a CrossFit or like a competitive kind of journey, like how it looked when I started versus like how it is now, and how you're like, okay, like I live here now, I'm with this person now, and like I'm doing all this now, and how do I fit it in now? But I'm committed to doing it, so I find a way to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what those people do. They find a way.
Well, it also
do it.
works with, it doesn't push other important things out of your life. Because
Yeah.
I think there are people who don't do a very good job with that. Training and CrossFit remain like the number one, the thing, very rigid. And as a result, like their life, the rest of their life suffers.
Yeah.
I think
I've
you're
seen
doing
that
a
in
really
clinics.
good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow.
You guys do great.
This conversation was incredible.
It
thought it was
encompassed
really
a
good.
lot.
I could sit here all day and just keep talking.
Yeah.
I think I made sense about 65% of the
Yeah,
time, which is higher than my usual 50%.
PR on
Lindsay, why are you
logical.
laughing? You're supposed to say no. You
Oh, I
made
was thinking of
perfect sense.
myself. I was like, yeah, I really kind of lost it there for a sec.
If you gathered over 50% of that and we were somewhat coherent, you've won.
Yeah.
You win. If you made it to this point in the podcast and you're a client of ours, send us a blowfish emoji the next time you check in. Awesome. Thank you for coming on again
Thanks for having me.
and tolerating us.
Always.
We know there's an element of tolerance required to get through these. Alex, we really got to work on your English. Listeners,
I'm too smart for my own good.
You know,
just-
too
There's
many
so much
words.
going on in my brain,
You
my mouth
combine
can't
them.
keep up.
yeah, it's like a fire hose coming through like a garden hose sprinkler.
Something like that.
Yeah, like attaching a fire hose to a sprinkler. That's Alex.
But there's also little holes in the hose also where things are coming out.
Yes,
I don't
just
know.
bursting at the seams with good information. Listeners, thank you so much. It means a lot that you stuck around this long. Like, subscribe, share, do all the things. Our holiday challenge is starting up. If you're not on our email list, get on our email list. Really easy. Just go on our website. It'll pop right up. You can also sign up for the challenge on our website. It's live. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys out there. Okay. Toodaloo.